You see it right off the bat. Boom, explosive, right out of his stance. He can get to snap out, he can stay low, and then attack with an upward punch.
Hey, Browns fans, time now for the second to last edition. I know it's sad. It's sad that we're concluding this, but we've got some more fun for you on the Browns Breakdown. Nathan Zegura, joined as always by the Athletics draft analyst, Dane Brugler. And Dane, Nick Harris is a Brown because Andrew Berry had the chutzpah, I would like to say, to move from 41 to 44, still get his guy, Grant Delpit, pick up that fifth rounder, and the fifth rounder they got, Nick Harris. And I've talked to a bunch of people, and they said this was the guy that offensive line coaches, when they watched his tape, they loved it. I'm pumped to get to watch some of it because the only reason he was in the fifth round is because of his size, and that's not something he can control. But his tape, his movement skills, ideal for the zone scheme, and this is somebody that I think is going to impress a lot of people. And I've gotten a chance to talk to him. This kid is smart as well. Very, very sharp.
Yeah, and I think similar to Harrison Bryant, I'm not sure the Browns necessarily enter draft weekend planning on drafting a center as one of their key targets. But the fifth round, that's probably 2 rounds later than Nick Harris should have lasted, making the value too good to pass up. And as we jump into why, I think we start with that snap and step that he offers as a center. And when you watch Harris, that's the first thing that stands out is that initial quickness. And you could argue that's maybe the most important trait for an offensive lineman, especially at center where quickness is paramount. And, you want to see a center with that explosive snap and step motion. And that's what you see here against BYU. You see it right off the bat. Boom, explosive, right out of his stance. He can get to snap out, he can stay low, and then attack with an upward punch to engage before the defender can do anything. The defender can't dictate the action here. This is all about the center getting the ball out and then doing what he wants to do, taking the defender where he wants to away from the play. Now, this is not a positive play in the stat book, in the box score, but when you watch the center, you can see just how important that is, that initial quickness and his ability to get out of his stance, control the defender. That explosiveness is key with Nick Harris.
Well, you watched that, and Nick Harris was like an Uber driver right there. He gave 91 a ride about 10 yards across the field there. And that's the thing with him. When you are not as tall, he's not as tall, you do have that low leverage. And you saw him use it there. You said the upward punch coming from that low position. They always say low man wins.
That's it. And I think, to your point, you also see that stubbornness here where, the plays even away from him, but he's not stopping. That grappling strength, that to latch and stay attached through the whistle, that is a key part of what Nick Harris does. And I think that really brings us to our next clip. And this is another great example of just pure grip strength. Here he is going up against Stanford. Okay. And right off the snap, again, the very quick snap step motion to engage the defender. But instead of just delivering a sharp punch or riding the defender wide of the lane, watch him as he snatches his chest and just takes him straight to the ground. This is a center that is not okay with just blocking you. He wants to finish you to the ground.
And you like that. That's the tenacity. When I talked with Bill Callahan, one of the things he liked about it, he said, this guy plays hard every single snap and he's feisty. And as Callahan joked with him about his size, the fact is, if he were built like some of those guys that went earlier at the center position in this draft, he wouldn't have been there for the Browns in the fifth round. This guy would probably be a second, third round pick.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing about Harris that just always stands out when you watch him. He never misses out on an opportunity to bury. And it's what it makes it so easy to love him when you watch him play. You can see the intelligence, you see the athleticism, but it's that competitive toughness, that nasty mentality that he brings to the field. That was the main takeaway when watching him that I saw. And look, this is a guy who wasn't highly recruited out of high school, and he still competes with that chip. So it's just like everyone's betting against him. And I can bet him going in the fifth round, probably later than he thought he should have gone, that's only going to fuel that momentum even more, where you're not going to have to worry about him giving anything less than his absolute best when he's on the field.
And you saw that in Washington, got his absolute best in his 2 years as a starter, as a center. Did he allow 1 sack? Was it 1 or 2?
Yeah.
I mean, pretty impressive.
Exactly. And that's something that he played a little bit of guard, moved over to center, and he was an all Pac-12 guy the last 2 years. And I think, this last clip that I wanted to highlight, This, I think, really shows Harris on the move. And this is, I think, the main reason why his fit in Cleveland is just perfect. Studying the tape, you see some of his best work comes in motion, making him just a perfect fit for that outside zone blocking scheme. And here against BYU, you can see him attack. Watch him sneak through the gap, reach the second level with ease. He's stretching out that run lane. And look, on this play, he's getting there almost too quickly. He has to turn around, slow up, and find a trailing defender that he can pick off. So that initial quickness, that mobility is a big part of the center position, or really the offensive line in this outside wide zone scheme. And that's something that Harris can do outstanding.
Yeah, and you see it here. That is that outside zone run, beats his guy. But how about the wherewithal to say, okay, I'm here. I want to be useful. Flip his head, flip his hips. This is he's a big man. To get his whole body stopped, turned around, and then to be able to make a block. That's, again, another just clear illustration of his athleticism.
Yeah, you see the coordination on the move, and that's so key because you want to be you want to keep busy. You want to be blocking someone, anyone. And so he is always looking for someone to block. And like you mentioned, 6'1", 300 pounds, the ideal size is just not there. And so for some schemes, maybe that's why he fell to the fifth round. It just wasn't an ideal fit. But the main reason he fell to the fifth round is because of that size. But that mobility, it just makes him such a great fit for Stefanski and what the Browns offense should look like. So with Harris, I mentioned he has the experience at guard. He has the experience at center. Gives the Browns some immediate interior line depth that I think is really important for this scheme.
Yeah, the Browns have been very fortunate. Look, J.C. Tretter, Joel Bitonio, will knock on wood, but we'll focus more on Tretter because the Browns view him as a center, has been able to play every snap the last years. He's been an Iron Man. He's been incredibly tough, but you need to have somebody ready to step in. And Bill Callahan's message to Nick Harris was, you're not getting groomed. You're not, we're not learning. You've got to get yourself ready to be able to play this year because injuries happen on the offensive line. And we certainly hope nothing happens to JC, but the Browns, I know, are very happy that they were able to get Nick Harris to kind of have a guy that fits this scheme. I remember in your write-up, your final summation was, for a zone scheme, this guy is a perfect fit. And that's what the Browns are running. And the Browns are able to get him really for free. You think about it, you would have stayed at 41 and taken Delpit. That's great. You go to 44. Now you get Delpit and Nick Harris and don't lose anything. You just gain, which was a good move. I think took a lot of courage by Andrew Berry to do it, but pulled it off. And now they get this very, very fine young center out of Washington.
Yeah, just this is a great move by the first-year general manager with Andrew Berry, and give him a lot of credit because he allowed the board to come to him on some of these picks, but then he also saw a chance to go get a player, and that's what he did with Nick Harris. And so 92 overall on my board, and to get him, 160, something like that. I mean, just a tremendous value, I think, and a great fit for what the Browns are trying to do this year.
Absolutely. We hope we don't need to see him this year, but if we do, I feel pretty confident Nick Harris will be ready to go. For Dane Brugler, I'm Nathan Zegura saying thanks again for joining us on the Browns Breakdown.